It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Jeromy R. Dixson, DMD, MBA, and his partner in crime, Ian McNickle, MBA. So we'll start with introducing the bald beauty on the left. Dr. Dixon is a three-time Inc. Magazine 5,000 award entrepreneur and the founder CEO of the DSO Project, dentistry's first and only dental support organization, Accelerator. Formerly, he was the founder and CEO of Smile Services and founder and president of Smiles Dental Group. He is a visionary, inspirational, and transformational leader who builds unified individuals, teams, cultures, and world-class organizations. Dr. Dixon became the managing partner of Smiles Dental in 2008. In 2010, he finalized the buyout of his former partners, assumed the role of president, and immediately accomplished a successful relaunch of the organization, setting Smiles Dental on a path to explosive growth. The company proceeded to double its number of locations, triple revenue, and quadruple its valuation in the ensuing 3 years. From 2013 to 2015, Smiles Dental roughly tripled the number of locations, revenue, and EBITDA, and organizational value again. He also concurrently co-developed the dental analytics technology software platform that became Practice Analytics, one of the industry leaders in real-time dental practice management analytics. Under Dr. Dixon's leadership, Smiles Dental was recognized 3 years in a row by Inc. magazine as one of the fastest growing privately held companies in the U.S., topping out at number 550. Additionally, in 2013, he completed the successful private equity transition. In addition to his M&A advising and consulting work at the DSO Project, Dr. Dixon provides board services to private equity firms. He also currently serves as a trusted DSO dental industry advisor for private equity firms, dental technology companies, and global dental brands in a variety of capacities. Dr. Dixon just returned in mid-2017 from a one-year sabbatical where he and his family visited 6 continents and 35 countries while homeschooling with only what they could carry on their backs. That ought to be another podcast just in itself.
We'll do it again.
And Ian decided today to join us. Ian McNickle, MBA. Ian, tell us about yourself.
You bet. Thanks, Howard. I started my career actually in engineering and high tech and got an MBA eventually, and then I decided I wanted to do marketing. So I started my first marketing company back in 2005-06 time frame, and since 2009, I've been co-founder of WEO Media. It's a national dental marketing agency, and I've also partnered with Dr. Dixon here for the DSO Project.
So I love having anybody on with DSOs because I always get the most views and downloads because you are the boogeyman. I mean, when I got out of school in '87, the boogeyman was capitation, and then it was HIPAA, and then it was OSHA. You know, it's always something. And right now, the big bad boogeyman is DSOs. A lot of dentists that are my age think, you know, when we were little, every pharmacist worked for his own place, and then they all got rolled up into Walgreens. Where do you see the DSO market now? Where do you see it topping out on? What percent someday do you think will dentists work in DSOs?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is a little bit of prognostication right now, right, Howard? But I was also that same dentist coming out of dental school. I saw what was happening with corporate dentistry, with DSOs, and I felt like I looked around and I saw grocery stores and bookstores and tire stores and all of these different stores in my lifetime at that time, and I'd seen a consolidation happening in those industries. And so when I came out of dental school, I was 27, 28 years old. And I wanted to be able to compete long term. And so I didn't necessarily like everything about corporate dentistry and DSOs, but I also felt like looking around the landscape at other businesses, I felt like this was the future. And so my foray into group practice and DSOs originally came from the feeling that at 27, 28 years old, when I'm 45, I want to be able to compete, and so I felt like my interest in it and my involvement in it could make it better, and maybe do some of the things better than what had happened before, and so that was really the motivation for me, and then as far as where I see it going, the market right now there is a lot of investment money, a lot of investors interested in emerging group practices and DSOs. They're actually investing in groups right now that aren't even fully built. It's quite interesting. It's not when I did my transaction 5 years ago, it was totally a different market. This wasn't happening to the extent it is now. So I think there's a lot of investor interest, and the numbers I've seen recently, somewhere between 15 and 17 or 18% of practices are now affiliated with the DSO or a large group practice. And I don't believe. I think if we are saying where is this going to go, I think we look at medicine as a guide because they're 25 years ahead of us or so. And if we look at medicine as a guide, there are definitely still practices that are owned by the physician, and I think that will continue in dentistry. And what I see happening is that to compete as a private dentist, the dentists just need to up their game. They need to know business. They need to understand marketing. They need to be investing in themselves as lifelong learners to be able to compete and provide a very high level of quality and service and care and customer experience, patient experience. So in terms of a percentage, I'm not sure if you're going to pin me down on a percentage of where it's going to go, but I do think that if it's 18, 17% now, if you look at some of the new trends and some of the recent surveys, it used to be that 75% of dentists would never be involved with the DSO, just like a year or two ago. And the most recent survey I saw was it went from like 73% to 52% of dentists would not be involved in a DSO in 1 year. So I think that there's going to be, at least in the short term, more dentists involved in that consolidation process. And I don't know exactly where it's going to go, but I definitely think in the short term to intermediate term, it's going to keep growing, Howard.
So our 1 million MD brothers and sisters in the United States, what percent of those are in a DSO equivalent, like an MSO?
On the MD side?
Yes.
I don't know the exact number of that. Ian, have you seen any numbers on that?
I'm not sure what the percentage would be.
No, I mean, just looking around, if we all say, driving around town, looking on the internet, I have to believe it's over 50%, 2/3, 3/4, somewhere in that range are probably affiliated with the health system. Or
when you mine down that 18%, what is the smallest that you would consider a DSO? Because I mean, there's a lot of group practices. A lot of group practices in small towns end up having 2 or 3 locations. I've been to so many towns of like 25,000 where they'll have a group on the north, south, east, west. What is your definition of the smallest DSO? Does it still qualify as a DSO?
Well, I wouldn't do it by number of locations because a DSO is a dental support organization, dental service organization, and they provide non-clinical services to practices. And so to be a DSO, there's a legal component of it where you have a managed service organization or the MSO that provides the services, the non-clinical services to the docs, and that arrangement on the legal side is a DSO type structure. But then if you look at the actual services that are rendered to the practices, you're looking at services like having a centralized marketing, having centralized billing, having centralized or at least organized and managed call centers, and then professional management to assist the practice at the practice level. So you can have a 2 or 3 practice group that has those characteristics and actually acts maybe bigger and acts more like a DSO. And you can have a 7 or 8 or 10 practice group that's simply a collection of practices that isn't really a DSO, even though they're larger. So does that make sense, Howard? Yeah.
Now I'm going to throw you under a bus because you got roots in Utah, right? You went to BYU, right?
I went to BYU, correct.
And that's how about you, Ian? Do you have roots in Utah?
No, I went to Washington State University. I'm from Washington.
Okay, well, the question I want to ask is, when you're running the DSO, the central crux of it would be your information management system, your practice management software, and Utah is home of Dentrix up in Provo. And but if some kid was listening to you right now and they were going to start up their own practice, You were a founder of so many of these things. What practice management system would you recommend a DSO use or a general office use? What do you think gives you the best metrics?
The best metrics?
Well, what system would you recommend? Dentrix, EagleSoft, Open Dental, SoftDent. There's so many. We got 3 MBAs here.
Yeah. So Howard, I in my group, I used EagleSoft and Dentrix over the years, and so I'm probably partial to those because I've used them, and I know the Dentrix folks that shine really, really well, and have nothing but great things to say about them. One of the trends I'm seeing in DSOs, and especially small and emerging DSOs, many are going with Open Dental,
which is where you guys both live in Oregon.
That's right. It's right down the road.
He's your homie. He's right up the street.
That's right. I would say that's emerging as a choice of some of the smaller and emerging groups in DSOs is Open Dental. So I'm partial to those. I also I know of one that I'm working with that's using Curve and having a lot of success. So I'm somewhat agnostic when it comes to the basic practice management system, as long as it integrates with some of the analytics software like Practice Analytics that I like. And then in terms of at DSO level, Dentrix Enterprise is probably the standard in terms of embedded analytics and functionality.
But I physically have been to a half dozen call centers, and when you talked about what is a DSO supply? You said marketing, billing, a call center. I firmly believe that one of the DSO's most secret, most powerful weapons is that they have 24-hour, 7-day-a-week call centers. I mean, there's 168 hours in a week, and these dentists are only open 32 hours a week. They don't know how many people land on their website. They don't know for every 100 that land on their website how many convert to actually calling. They don't know when those calls come in, what percent of the time they were even open. They don't know what percent went to voicemail. They don't know what percent of the voicemails were open. And when I go into these DSOs and they have 24-hour call centers that can take that incoming call, go right to the schedule, all that stuff. But it seems like the call center for a DSO doesn't matter because they're all in their own system. But when I go to call centers that take calls for multiple dentists with all these different practice management systems, they all say that they love Open Dental most because it's open and their programmers can make it seamless. And when they go to Dentrix and EagleSoft, it's not open.
Yeah, absolutely. The open framework of Open Dental, I believe, is why it's emerging to the level that it is. And if you look at some of the legacy DSOs that have been around for a while, most of them are on one of the primary practice management softwares. But like I said, the new ones, they like it, and those call centers like Breakaway has a great call center functionality. I'm sure you know those guys over there.
Yeah, I've been there too. And when the incoming call came, you can't make this up. I was standing there watching for a couple of days. When a call center came and it was a dental office on Open, they go, "Yay!" And when it came from any others, they go, "Damn it." Because it was so much more difficult for them to do their job. And I thought, so when you're looking at marketing, how much of and we're measuring it by new patients coming into the office, how much of the marketing do you think really is having a 24-hour call center? What percent of the marketing would you say is the call center?
Ian, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah. So a lot of the smaller DSOs aren't that sophisticated, and they lose out a lot. When you get to the point where you can have a call center or you outsource, like something like Breakaway or otherwise, some of the reports I've seen, you can see as much as 40% increase when you do after hours conversions. So that means call centers, and it also means live chat, because those are the two ways you're going to convert leads from a website or leads from any marketing effort after hours. So the data I've seen is about a 40% bump, which is very significant.
Right.
Oh, 40%. Yeah, it's huge.
It's huge. And if you think about, just dentists who have run a practice, when do patients call to cancel or reschedule their appointment? How many messages do you have overnight? From the time that the business closes until the time you open up, that 15 hours or whatever it is, or 14 hours, a lot of people and patients, they'd rather call, leave a message, cancel, and that throws your day off, right? And that's not ideal. And so by having that call center and that ability to chat and call and do it 24/7, it's a huge advantage to the more organized groups, for sure.
Big time.
So what do you think is the building blocks of a DSO? My homies are listening right now. He got out of school 5 years ago. He wants to be like you when he grows up. What is the building blocks? What is the foundation of this?
The foundation, well, you used the right word, Howard, foundation. The foundation, the way I like to look at it is a framework. I call it the DSO house, right? So you've got the foundation, you've got some pillars, some primary pillars that are critical to hold everything up, and then you have the roof that's protecting everything below. And so that's kind of the general framework how I like to look at it. And think of, you mentioned I was on my sabbatical in 16 and 17, and one of the places we went was Athens, Greece. And we visited the Acropolis and the Parthenon up there. And this building and this structure, it's iconic. People can Google it if they haven't seen it before, but I'm sure everyone has seen the Parthenon at some point. It's this old building. There's a foundation, there's pillars, and there's a roof. That's kind of how I like to look at the DSO house. And it stood for 2,600 years at this point. It was built in like 450 BC. So it's been there forever. The foundation, the actual foundation of the house is the mission, vision, and values of the organization. You have to have and in my opinion, on the mission side, it better be short, simple, and concise. So, for instance, at Smiles Dental, our mission was ultimate service, superior performance, positive impact. 6 words. I talked about it all the time as a CEO. Everyone knew what that meant and what that meant for what their why was in their job and for the company. So that mission and vision and values has to drive everything. And in my opinion, as a leader of a group or even a single practice, it doesn't matter, any dental practice, 1, 5, 10, 300, you run every decision as a leader through that mission, vision, and values. And the decision, the choice you're going to make, if it's going to be the right thing for the organization, it has to be congruent and aligned with those mission, vision, values. So that's the foundation.
What were those 6 words? Ultimate service.
Superior performance.
Superior performance.
Mm-hmm.
And then what was the last 2?
Positive impact. That was our mission. And
ultimate service, superior performance, positive impact. That was your concise mission.
That was it. And if you think about it like this. I thought about it as a flywheel, right? So if you start with ultimate service, if you treat those patients the way and follow the platinum rule and treat them the way that they want to be treated, then and try to anticipate their needs and try to make everything as easy and smooth as you can for them, then they're gonna come back and you're going to have more patients. They're going to tell their friends. And then the next one is superior performance. If you have more patients and you're providing that service the way that you should, and great dentistry, quality experience, patient experience second to none, then your performance of the business is going to increase and it's going to continue to grow and flourish. And then if you have those 2 pieces in place, the crowning jewel, in my opinion, of that flywheel is the positive impact. And that's why I got up in the morning every day to build and grow my DSO, was because I felt like in my single office, I could impact positively those patients I saw and my team. And by following this mission, I have the opportunity to impact positively so many more teams, practices, patients in multiple states. And so that was really what got me going, because I feel like my mission on earth is, and something that I really enjoy and provides me fulfillment, is making other people's lives better. I used to say, I want everyone in this organization's life to be better, not only from a career standpoint and job standpoint, but to learn things that will help them to have a better life and to have more enjoyment and fulfillment in their life. And so that's kind of the approach. And we had a community service component. And so we tried to positively impact with community events and service, on a monthly or quarterly basis in every practice as well.
And how many children did you drag all around the world?
Three, Howard. So now I have 3 boys. So we don't have any princesses or anything like that in our house. but I have probably 75 Nerf guns. So that's kind of how we roll at my house. My boys right now, when we left on the trip, they were 6, 11, and 13. So first grader and first, 5th, and 8th graders. And we each had a backpack, and that's it. And it was a carry-on size backpack, not a giant hiking, camping, trekking backpack. It was the largest backpack we had was 44 liters, easily fit in a carry-on compartment. And we had that was all we had. So I had 1 week's worth of clothes, a few electronics, very, very simple life for a year.
Well, the reason I ask is because, for me, the only common thing you can find in all of the major religions written and translated, you won't find a name of a person, a place, a city, a town. The only thing you'll find exact in all major original works is treat other people like you want to be treated. And I have 4 boys, and they've made me 5 grandchildren, 4 which are boys, and I feel so sorry for my little Taylor because she's such a tomboy because all of her uncles and brothers they're all boys. But I always look at these DSOs, I always tell these dentists, make sure you're working someplace that treats those patients like you want to be treated. So when you're working at some place, and what's starting to scare me a little bit is when non-dentists own DSOs, because then you have, the greatest engineering companies in the world, like say Hewlett Packard. I mean, Hewlett and Packard were both engineers. I mean, Henry Ford was an engineer, and they have non-dental people telling them that they got to place this many perio chips if the pocket's over 6 millimeters and this and that. And they're like, well, you're not a periodontist. And I get on Dental Town, and the periodontists say they don't recommend that. And I don't want to do something because a non-clinical person, and now that, that I got grandchildren, I know I'm the next one dead and the great-grandchildren are the next ones up. I don't want dentistry to turn into a place that my grandchildren can't go. I mean, that's always been my litmus test for today's dental. What I love the most about my dental office is I can be in Africa, and my granddaughter can go to today's dental. And I don't have to see the treatment plan. I don't have to worry about it. I know she couldn't be in a better place. Right. And that's where the initial DSO people were afraid. And that's why a lot of states set up a lot of regulatory barriers that you had to be a dentist, Right. And so, as long as it's dentistry the way you would want done on yourself and your children and your grandchildren, and as long as you own something that you could die and be 6 feet underground, and your children and your great grandchildren could go in there, and they're not going to be doing things for insurance billing codes and revenue and EBITDA and return on investment, and they're doing it. They put dentistry first.
Yep.
And how do you feel that mission is being accomplished now, macroly, as far as the DSOs in the United States?
Well, there's definitely some bad actors. I think there are in any profession. There are private dentists that do that same thing. I won't name names, but
you got it. It's Dentistry Uncensored. Name names.
I better not. There was a practice that I looked at to purchase, and the guy was doing 65% of his revenue was coming just from crowns. So, typically that number should be probably somewhere in the 20 to 30%, kind of max. And so obviously there were some issues in that practice. So I think that piece, you're absolutely right. That scares me too. That scares everybody. And the reason I got into it, and with my company, I wanted to take the best of the hometown dentist, like Cheers, where everybody knows your name, and that quality is great. And it's about people first, and then it's process and systems, and then it's profit. And anytime I've seen a company, whether it's a DSO or a mechanic, it doesn't matter. if they're putting money first, if they're putting that profitability first, and that's what it's all about, then it's not sustainable. And in my opinion, it eventually is going to fail or fall or falter. And so I think that's a real issue, and that's why we need more people who are doing it right. And that's what Ian and I are trying to accomplish here, is to try to build, because we know that's the way the industry is going, and if we have great founders who are trying to build something that they can be proud of long term, and now this is something that's new that your listeners probably haven't heard, because I know really connected people in the industry who don't know this is an option. But private equity firms, because they're so interested in dentistry, they are willing to do a minority investment, a non-control investment, and that has traditionally not been the case. So now, if you're a small and emerging group and you want to maximize your positive impact, you have the ability to get growth capital, but not having the strings attached to the same levels they were before, where you have to give up control of your group and control of the board. And so when it's done right, I think what it looks like is you have a doctor leader, whether that's the president, CEO, just like in a primary practice. The DSOs that I've seen that don't have doctor leaders, unless they've been around for a long time. There's a couple that I can think of that started with a doctor leader as not a dentist, really gets it and was groomed for 20, 30 years for that position. And those can be okay. But generally, non-dentist CEOs, especially if they have a financial background, if they're like a CFO, controller background, finance background, those people tend to drive the numbers. And obviously it's illegal to have quotas and that sort of thing. But it happens, and it has happened. And that's why we had some of the bounce back, the rebound regulation 15 years ago on that. And so I do think, as a member of the ADSO previously, I'm not now, but as a member, I was on some committees. I know that, they're trying to, most DSOs are trying to learn from the bad actors in the past and do it right. And I do share your concern when you get investors involved that don't understand the nuances of dentistry. And that's actually something you mentioned before, that I provide board services. So that's what I do, is especially firms that haven't, and I sit on the board with them as an independent advisor. And so you have the DSO founder, and you have the investors, and you have me. And I know both sides, and I can help both sides navigate that issue and make sure that it stays right. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And I want to say one thing. The one thing I feel so sorry for DSOs, that they live this big aquarium that everybody looks at. And when there's a bad actor in a DSO, everybody focuses on it, and it tarnishes the DSO brand. But look at all the bad actors in the private field. I mean, gosh, just this month, you've had a dentist arrested for having a secret camera in the bathroom. That's only like the third time this year. There was another one in Canada. There was a good old boy in Oklahoma where they, wasn't sterilizing his instruments. I mean, how many pediatric fatalities have we had in the last 5 years that are blown all over social media because private practice, someone was doing IV sedation and didn't know what they're doing, and somebody lost their 3-year-old. But man, when it happens to a DSO, it's just like, raise them up the flagpole. So, but I want to ask you another tough question.
Hey, Howard, before you ask that, can I there's one more thing that you just brought to my mind, which is that one thing I have seen that is a real win for the patients with a larger, more organized group or a DSO is on the sterilization and infection control side of an office. Because I used to acquire and bring in dentists and practices that were really high quality, top 10% type practices. And even in those practices, it's easy for the infection control procedures and nuances to not be followed to a T. And because DSOs and larger organizations are a larger target, and if something happens, it's a bigger deal, and we tend to be audited a little bit more, I do believe that the infection control and the sterilization standards of most DSOs tend to be, toward the leading edge of the industry for sure, because
Absolutely.
which I think is a really
and the boy in Oklahoma that failed miserably and everybody had to be called. All the dentists on there loved him. Great guy, great dentist, great everything. But his autoclave and his spore testing machine, that protocol died, and probably it just died. And but anyway, that's that stuff. I want to ask you one more hard-hitting question now, because one thing where people question the whole DSO model is why are when you talk about private equity, what's their exit strategy? It seems like people will master the $5 to $50 million range, then 3 to 5 years later they'll flip it to someone at the 50 to 100. And then when they're done, it'll be the 100. It's like a hot potato. Why can't they go public? I mean, if Snapchat can go public, because the reason when you're talking to, I'm much older than you. I'm 56. You're 41. When I got out of school, Orthodontic Centers of America was publicly traded, and there was a dozen on NASDAQ. Every last one of them imploded. And it seems like, and then the financial, the Wall Street boys, they don't seem to want to touch any of these. And one of the biggest banks that loan to these people, remember East West Bank?
Yep.
And do they still loan to DSOs? No, they do not. So if the East West Bank said, we played with this, and then you're talking to old grandpas that say, I've already seen this rodeo, I don't need to see it again. And if the NASDAQ won't take it public, they've done over 100 IPOs this year.
Yeah.
Why is not one of these DSOs publicly traded on NASDAQ?
That is a great question, Howard. I'm not sure I have a great answer, but I can hypothesize on it a little bit. I mean, I imagine that some of the early DSOs, and especially on the pediatric side, there were some real bad actors, Medicaid mill type DSOs, got really bad publicity. I imagine that is going to scare them away a little bit. So that's part of it. And I believe, I know that back in the 90s, Burner Dental Management went public. So I think they may be the only one that's public. They're still public.
Right, but it's damn near a penny stock. I mean, it's not.
Right, it's not, right. So maybe, that because of the performance there, maybe there's an issue. And then I imagine that because it's primarily, in my opinion, if you can keep it private as a company, it's much less onerous, much less regulation. The flip side of that for patients and the industry is if it's a privately held company, it's less transparent, right? There's less transparency. So there's a trade-off. And I think if I had to put a guess on one reason why it's that way, it would be because the DSOs have chosen to keep it private and just not gone that route. I know if you look at the largest ones, Heartland Dental Care, owned by KKR, and they've stayed private the whole time. And then Pacific Dental Services is owned by, obviously by Steve Thorne, and he's kept it completely private. Those are the largest two. And so I'm sure that if they wanted to, those larger DSOs could absolutely take it public. I just think they're looking at it saying, we can keep it private, we can get growth capital, we can keep growing. It's why take on the additional burden of having to go public. So I don't have insider knowledge on why that is. That's just my opinion. But that's my thought.
There's actually another thing too that it could hit on, which is traditionally when companies do an IPO, it's to raise capital. If you need capital, if you don't need capital, there's no reason to do IPO, and there's no reason to subject yourself to all that Sarbanes-Oxley nonsense. So that might be a reason, because there's so much profitability and cash flow in these entities, they don't need to do IPOs. That could be the other reason too.
Right. The margins on a good DSO, can hit 18 to 20% or above. And I've seen specialty DSOs in the 30-40% range on margins. So the margins are there. It's, grocery store or a large insurer, they might have 1% margins on a good day. And so there's more, the margins are better, more profitability. That I think there's more ability to obtain capital.
Right. So tell us your journey on the DSOproject.com. What is the DSO Project, and what should my homies know about it?
Sure. So I came up with this idea. I took my sabbatical, first of all, and I was inspired by Stefan Sagmeister. Have you heard of that? Have you heard of him, Howard?
No, I have not.
Okay. He is not a dentist, not involved in dentistry at all, but he owns a design firm in New York. And I heard a TED Talk by him probably 6 or 7 years ago. And he talked about taking a Sagmeister, which is a sabbatical every 7 years. He closes his firm every 7 years, takes 1 year off, and he's found that his inspiration and the ideas he comes up with when he's not in the grind really fuel the success of his firm for that next 7 years. And so that really intrigued me, because I noticed for myself that when I was on vacation, when I was away from the office, when I was hanging out with the family or playing golf somewhere once in a while, that I had my best ideas for the business because I was out of the grind. And so that was one of the things that inspired me, taking that idea of a Sagmeister and also pairing that with the idea of, from the 4-hour work week, Tim Ferriss, mini retirements, taking that. And what I found was I had all these ideas when I stepped away. And so I actually came up with the original idea and put it on paper when I was recovering from altitude sickness in Lima, Peru. So I was in Cusco, Peru at 11,500 feet, and I had severe altitude sickness coupled with asymptomatic pneumonia. So I was getting no oxygen. My blood oxygen, Howard, after about 6 hours of oxygen therapy at the hospital was percent. It was really bad. I got evacuated out of Cusco and went to Lima. My family was gone for 17 days, and I had time. I would go to the Starbucks in Lima, and I would sit there with my iPad and my pad, and I would just put all these thoughts I'd had in my head over the last 6 months down on paper, and I came up with the DSO Project. So what it is I saw an opportunity and a need in the industry to help a lot of these small and emerging groups. They might have 2 practices or 3 practices or 4 or 5 practices. And they have this nice group, they have energy, they have a vision, but they don't have some of the tools to build what they want to build. And they don't have a group of people around them who are in the same boat, who are wanting to do the same thing, where they can learn from each other. So I came up with this DSO Project ecosystem. What it is it's very exclusive. We take a small number, limited cohort of high potential entrepreneurs that have, generally 2 practices to maybe 7 practices is sort of the sweet spot. But we've worked with more and less than that. And we provide them mentorship, we provide them resources, a playbook of some manuals and trainings and that are the building blocks of that DSO from a systems and process standpoint. And then most importantly, or not most importantly, but additionally, there's a mastermind piece of this. So they have a community. We get together annually and quarterly for different events, and they're learning from each other. So Ian and I take our collective experiences, both building a DSO, having been involved in group practice since I started as an associate in group practice in 2004 when I graduated, and leveraging the experiences that I've had, leveraging and learning from the mistakes that I made as well. It wasn't a perfectly clear path to success, so I made some mistakes, and so basically people who come in and join the DSO Project can stand on our shoulders of what we've learned. And Ian has worked with countless numbers of single practices, small group practices, and DSOs. And in fact, we met because we worked together in marketing my DSO. So we've known each other for years, and I've known him through that. So that's in a nutshell. That's what we provide for people. And then, we have a dedicated channel for all of our documents and all of our communication. That's a closed group that we provide for those we work with. And then we're engaged with them on a weekly basis, or even sometimes a daily basis, depending on where they are, to help make sure they're on the right track and we're providing the resources they need. And then the cool thing is when they're ready to get growth capital or take that next step of growth in this ecosystem. I also do M&A advising. So I have vetted firms that I've worked with that I know understand dentistry and understand they don't know what they don't know, and I can help provide that the right fit when the time is right. And so that's something that a typical, if a group's looking for capital, Howard, typically it's sort of like an auction, which it's not necessarily finding the right fit. It's like finding the highest bidder. And in my opinion, it's the success of ensuring those things we talked about previously, ensuring that it's a place you want to bring your kids and your family, assuring that best practices stay in place and they understand that it's not just about profit. To find that right partner, you're probably not going to find that right partner through a bidding process. So that's one of the things we do is I work very closely with it's coming up on a dozen firms, but I have a network of 40 to 50 firms that I know and work with, and I can introduce and selectively assist in helping them find the right fit, not just capital from somewhere that's not going to add value.
Another thing,
Yeah.
when you're planning starting your first office or you're going to your second or third location, do demographics matter, and does the target matter? Like you look at Danaher, which is the largest dental publicly traded dental company in the world, who's currently now splitting off their dental division. I think the parent company is still going to own all the stock. They just want to separate the dental division stock from the medical. I can see that because the dental stock is a lower return stock and it's dragging down their more highly profitable medical holdings. But like Danaher, though, has a low cost Implants Direct value, and then they have the high cost premium Noble Biocare. When you're thinking about setting up your dental office or expanding your DSO, do demographics matter? And would you recommend targeting the value line like Implants Direct or the premium side of the dental equation like Noble Biocare?
Yeah. So first question, demographics, and Ian, and you can also add to this once I'm done. But in my opinion, demographics absolutely 100% are some of the most. Those metrics are some of the most important when you're looking at acquiring or starting a practice de novo. And the main KPI that I look at, the key performance indicator KPI that I like to look at is dentist to population ratio. So that to me is the number one metric. I used to do it in-house. Now I typically work and recommend to my clients to work with Dentographics. They provide a wonderful, generally pretty, in my opinion, pretty low-cost report that goes through not only dentist to population ratio, but incomes, a variety of other factors and metrics. And then what they do is, if you say you're looking at one metropolitan area, they're going to break that metropolitan area into 50 or 75 different neighborhoods and zip codes, and then they're going to rank order those based on what you prioritize as the most important metrics, and then give you the number one option, neighborhood, zip code, and number two, number three. And I love that approach, and so I have nothing but good things to say about demographics. Love them. And they absolutely do matter. And then to get to your second question, which is what you're targeting, are you targeting value, are you targeting premium? I think it all depends on what type of, what is your why and what is the purpose of your business and where are you positioned in the market. So if you're positioned as kind of, you're very high end customer experience, patient experience, you're going to want to match that with high quality labs and high quality supplies and equipment. And so in my mind, there's a balance between value and performance. And there's no right answer. I think most of the larger DSOs probably skew more toward the value side. However, some of the larger suppliers are really wanting to target DSOs and giving good and negotiating good enough discounts. DSOs are negotiating good enough discounts with those suppliers to be able to to be really competitive with some of the more value lines that are out there. And so it really depends on what level of service and what level of quality, where you're positioned in the market, in my opinion, in terms of targets.
We did Kent Miller, president of Dentographics. He was episode, I'm not sure what episode he was. I'll tell you what, I'll just retweet. Thank you to the 25,000 dentists who follow me on Twitter. They're driving to work right now. 85% are driving to work, so they can't take notes. We do put the notes on the Dental Town podcast. So if some people read faster, most people tell me they listen to my show at 1.5x. If you're really young and hopped up on caffeine, they'll listen to it at 2x. But what I do is I retweet these notes. By the way, I don't see you on Twitter. Are you not on Twitter?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, but not with DSO Project, just personally. But Jeromy Dixson, if you search me, I'm sure you can find me. But I'm not very active on Twitter. Very active on LinkedIn and somewhat active on Facebook. And actually, Ian and I are working on ramping the Facebook piece up. So you'll be seeing us much more on there.
Well, so for demographics, they absolutely matter. What was the number, though? What do you think the number is for the United States, and what is the number you want for your location?
Yeah, so the averages I've seen for the U.S. are about 1 to 1,500 or 1 to 2,000, somewhere in that range is sort of an average. I know that there are some areas, you spoke about Utah earlier, there are areas that are one dentist for every 300 or 400 people in some of those metropolitan areas like that.
And that is why Utah has the lowest median income for dentists in all 50 states.
Yeah.
And they, you just, and I get it, probably 20% of my dentist friends in Phoenix are LDS, and you just got to realize, if you want to raise your kid in the LDS community, come out here to Gilbert, come out here to Queen Creek, come to Mesa, go up to Idaho, but don't go to Salt Lake City.
No.
My God, because if you do, you're not going to pay back your student loans.
That's right, and I've seen it. I had a classmate that was the case, and it's tough when you see that, but yeah, I like to see anything over 1 to 2,000, 1 to 2,500, so above average. Obviously, the higher the better. One of my primary practices, actually my primary practice when I practiced was in a location about an hour north of Portland, Oregon, and we had a 1 to 4,500 dentist to population ratio, and that practice just grew and grew and grew and had huge amounts of opportunity. And in my opinion, if you're going to pick one metric or one KPI when you're looking to locate a practice, whether that's by acquisition as a single dentist or as a DSO, or you want to start up a location, look for those dentist to population ratios as high as possible, and hopefully over 1 to 2,500.
So you recommended Dentographics, Kent Miller, and listen to his podcast. It's great. I also recommend Scott McDonald up in Utah did a podcast on him. He's amazing. Another one is just Pew. I mean, the Pew organization, all the dentists hate them because they're all trying to sponsor dental therapists, whatever. I don't care about any of that stuff. They have the best research of all 50 states that you can find a dentist per 6,000 in any flyover state. Any flyover state. Right. Ohio to Arizona, you can find and if you're really, really committed to demographics, and you're really committed to having $1 million practice out of the gate with low overhead, taking home $350 out of the gate, you can find population dentists for every 6,000 people on Pew.org. I didn't get a recommendation from you for a call center too. You mentioned Scott Loon. Is there any call center that you recommend to someone listening to you? Or started DSO?
It would be Scott Loon and Breakaway. That is my primary recommendation. I really like what they're doing over there. I love how they report and the analytics. So that's my recommendation. Ian, do you have anything to add on that one, on the call center side?
No, I think that's a good one.
Yeah, that's the one I use, Howard. And if you want to share others with the listeners, that's great too. But that's the one that I like to work with and recommend.
Okay, and then for marketing, so demographics do matter. When people tell me demographics don't matter, I say, great, man, move to Somalia. They really need dentists there. And get back with me and tell me how that went. If you don't like that, go to Syria, Afghanistan. Demographics truly matter more than anything. That's why everybody born in the United States doesn't even realize they're just lucky. I mean, they could have been born. I've lectured in 50 countries, but I've only seen about 20 that I'd want to live in. and the other 200, you have to realize you were just born lucky. I mean,
Absolutely.
I mean, God, just if your street lights come on, you have an internet connection and 911 works, you just eliminated 200 countries. And when these people tell me in Arizona that they want to retire in Costa Rica and these other countries, and I say, yeah, it's just amazing until you have a heart attack at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then you're wondering why the hell are you in Costa Rica? You know, I mean, it just is what it is. You know, it's not anything other than it just is what it is. Marketing. What do you recommend for marketing?
You want me to take that, Jeremy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, and I want to, because you're just
for you. This is your
Kind of my thing, right?
Yeah, you're just being a pretty face on this show. You're not saying anything.
Yeah. Well, so with marketing, absolutely. So once you've kind of got the location set and we've picked the right demographics, okay, let's assume that's all behind us. Now your practice is open and it's time to market. So what I always recommend is starting first with getting the online marketing dialed in. You know, that's website, that's online reviews, it's social media, and of course SEO and PPC to really drive rankings and traffic. And so then once that's kind of dialed in, then we want to focus on some of the direct consumer, whether that's mailers, TV, radio, you know, whatever, billboards. And the reason is if you start with direct consumer first, a lot of those people are going to do what when they see your ad, right? They're going to go online and check you out and do more research. So if you do it backwards and you do direct consumer first, you risk losing a lot of money, a lot of leads. So what we recommend is starting with online, get that dialed in first, and then tracking is hugely important, right? So what we want to do is make sure we're using, you know, tracking phone numbers, we're using tracking data with the websites and trying to understand as much as we can where patients are coming from, where the leads are coming from online. And then, of course, you're using tracking phone numbers. So when people call, whether it's if they're using a call center, great, but most people don't. So if you're doing it yourself, you want to use a tracking number, which we always recommend. Then you can record those calls, listen to them. And I've done studies in the past. So at WEO Media, we work with hundreds. We worked with over 1,000 dental practices at WEO Media. And I've got gobs and gobs of data on phone tracking information. So I've gone and I've crunched this stuff in spreadsheets. And so what I found was it was right around 35 to 40% of all phone calls went straight to voicemail. And that was just kind of across the board, which was horrifying because these doctors are paying us thousands of dollars for marketing and literally a third of what we're generating for them is just getting flushed down the toilet. So answering the phone is critical. That's why the call center thing can be huge, but you've got to track the data, right? So that we do online first and direct consumer. And then making sure that the tracking is important too. So you mentioned earlier about practice management systems and practice analytics and some of these other things. It's really critical for when that patient comes in the door, and you guys are dentists, you know this, it's critical that you ask, hey, how did you hear about us? Where did you come from? Try to understand so you can enter that into your Dentrix or whatever. So at a high level, without getting into the nuts and bolts of how these things work, that's the strategy I would recommend.
Yeah, but I couldn't agree. I mean, what you said was so profound. I think that they all miss it. I mean, what percent of dentists track their phone numbers?
Not a lot. I don't know the percentage.
I mean, what percent would you guess?
20% probably.
Oh, no way.
I think that's too high.
10%.
I mean, oh my God. Now, I know I live in Arizona.
3%?
They call Arizona
it's low.
They call Arizona the Florida of the West Coast. I mean, I don't know a soul. I mean, I don't know anybody does that. Anytime I call a Fortune 500 company, the first thing I hear is this call may be recorded. Anytime I call a dental office. I mean, this morning, I just returned 2 dentist calls tonight about meeting up for beer and burgers at 7, and both of them, their office is open. Both went to voicemail.
Yeah.
I mean, so
terrible.
This is why DSOs are going to rule, because these dentists say, I mean, they're out there. Their number one god in dentistry is Gordon Christian. They want to learn what's the best bonding agent, so they travel all the way to Provo, Utah to see which bonding agent Gordon blesses, and they don't even realize a third of the fillings that they could have done will never even been done because they never even answered the damn phone call. And then with these smartphones, people don't leave a message. If you go to your voicemail, they just call the next one. I mean, if I Google dentist near me in Phoenix, there's 1 million things come up. I mean, literally, it's one, and you go to the first page at 3 to 5. So who do you recommend? Is there someone you recommend that does that? Is that your website? Your website?
That's one of the things that WEO Media does. So it's just weomedia.com, WEO media.com. So yeah, what that company, what we provide is just really a range of marketing services. It's a full service marketing agency, but it's just dentistry. That's all we do. And so as Dr. Dixson mentioned, Jeromy said,
so you can do all of these. You can, everything you just mentioned, weomedia.com.
Yes.
WEO Media. And what does WEO stand for?
That's a good question. It actually doesn't stand for anything. We came up with that years ago as a goofy little acronym. So, but it actually doesn't stand for anything.
Well, I mean, it's instead of SEO, you should SEO, search engine optimization. You should call it Wow Engine Optimization.
There you go.
Media. Yeah. Or find out if Star Wars had a character that started with W. Did it?
There you go. We'll pay you royalties, Howard.
but no, I mean, I love dentists. I do. I love them. I mean, I just love them. But my God, they just want to talk about bone grafting and implants. Yes. Last week, Phoenix had a digital dental conference, and I mean, 690 dentists showed up. 40% of them were prosthodontists. And they're just drooling on this stuff. And I'm sitting here thinking of what Warren Buffett said, where Warren Buffett said that 95% of the CEOs just go to work every day and just try to work on how they can make everything more complicated, more expensive. They take their hard-earned profit dollars and instead of distributing it to the owners and the investors and the shareholders, they buy all this fancy stuff. So this whole conference was about how to go from taking an alginate impression to buying a gazillion dollars worth of equipment, taking a gazillion dollar scan, sending it to some company that charges $400 to pour up these digits. It's like they travel 1,000 miles trying to say, what can I do to increase my overhead? I don't want to put $100,000 in my 401k. I don't want to retire early. I just want to take a standard denture and see if I can double the cost of this denture. Because they just love dentures. They just love it. And I get it. It's cool. Anything digital technology is cool. It's like setting up in Utah. I got 2 dental schools in my backyard. I got one in Mesa, AT Still. I got one in Glendale, Midwestern, and I don't know what percent, probably 20% of each class is Mormon. They all want to go back to Utah. I say, you can go back there as long as you know you'll be a peasant. Okay, do you want to be a peasant? The same thing I say about digital dentistry. If you just want to practice in Salt Lake, knock yourself out, but don't go back there thinking you're going to get rich off dentistry. Same thing with digital dentistry. It's like, man, if you love digital dentistry, you only live once. And if you only live once and you want to die with an intraoral scanner in your hand, knock yourself out. But don't sit there and think you're going to get rich with it. You're going to give them in fact, this is the funniest thing I tell them all, that if they want to buy any of that digital dentistry equipment, I always tell them, take the money you're going to buy and buy stock in the company. Then you can make money and get your money back because all your crazy ass peers are going to give all their profit dollars away to buy this stuff, and every time I hear an orthodontist bitching about Invisalign, I say, well, how much stock do you have in Invisalign? I mean, if every orthodontist is bitching about Invisalign, don't you think that's a buy recommendation in the 9th degree?
Absolutely.
So one of my homies listening right now, if he just went to Wow Enterprise Opportunity at weomedia.com, you can do the full service. You can record his phone calls, help him with online reviews, build his website, do his SEO, his social media. It's a one-stop shop.
It's a one-stop shop, and we built it that way on purpose because what we found when I started the company, I studied a lot of what was out there, and it was very piecemeal, kind of a scattered shotgun approach to marketing. You go to a conference and you hire somebody to buy a website, and then you have your front office person doing some Facebook, and you get a guy on Craigslist to shoot a video, and it's just this really piecemeal approach that doesn't work, and none of these people understand dentistry. And so we built this company over the years to do exactly that. And kind of like what Jeremy's saying, the reason that I partnered with him on the DSO project is I've become really passionate about the business side of dentistry because as a marketer for these dentists, I get involved with a lot of their financials. I talk to their CPAs and I understand what are they spending on marketing. They should be spending 3 to 7% on marketing if they want to grow. That's what the Academy Dental CPA recommends. So how many dentists are actually doing that? Very few. And so with our clients, and this is where I love what we can do with the DSO project as well. We can coach these guys on not only the operational piece, the financial piece, we can advise them on the marketing piece, and we can help them if they want to use my other company, WEO, for marketing. That's fantastic. The DSO project can really coach them along on all these various aspects of what's going to be important, because as you noted, Howard, we've got 3 MBAs here on this podcast, but a lot of dentists don't have that MBA and that business background. And I think that's what's really valuable about what you do with your podcast is you're educating them on this stuff, because you're both, right?
Yep.
That's great.
Yep.
Well, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to be a leader, and I know their first love is to pull a wisdom tooth, sink an implant. I mean, I get it. And I live in Arizona with 260 golf courses, and I'd rather do a molar root canal than play golf any day of the week. I mean, it's not even close. I get that, but I have to be a leader, and I'm trying to seduce them that, well, if you want to place more implants and do more root canals, and if you want to do all this stuff, I gotta take their nose and stick it in the business pie. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
they didn't go to school to be a businessman. They went to school to be a dentist. It's like a chef, man. They work with their hands. My oldest son's a welder. He works with his hands. Dentists are all surgeons. They just want to work with their hands. They fantasize about someone coming into that front door holding their face swollen in pain, and they're like, it's like a fireman looking at a 5-star fire. I mean, a policeman wants to see a bad guy, not his grandma. And but they have to nail this. So
Yep.
Do you also have a call center for them?
We are working on that. At this point, I would definitely recommend Breakaway. I think they're really good.
Okay, and then I got to tell another thing to all the males listening is I do believe boys and girls are very different in the fact that all the data I see, it's still 92% of all the appointments made by women. And women are a different beast, and they really want that digital online confirmation. I know more dentists who have exploded their new patients by getting on top of their online reviews. And and a lot of the dentists I'll talk to, I was just in Canada the other day, and you're sitting there, and while you're talking to this dentist, I'm asking him, how do you spell your name? And I'm typing it in. I pull up his website right there next to him. I say, how many online reviews do you have? They don't even know. No. I said, have you read these? And it's like, okay, you're a man, and that girl, female apes and monkeys talk to 5 other apes and monkeys for every time a man talks to one. Girls say over 7,500 words a day. Men are less than 1,500. That comes from the University of Chicago, where they have the most Nobel Prize winning economists. And men just don't get how important online reviews are. I can't think. I mean, it's got to be one of the top 3 most powerful things in marketing. Talk, Ian, about what you think about online reviews.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's one of the core tenets that we build into a marketing program, because there's just the internet has really allowed everyone to get so much more easy information access, right? So people, I mean, and dentists, doctors don't like to hear this, and I give a ton of lectures. I do a lot of speaking at conferences and study clubs all over the country, and this is always one of the most popular topics. And one of the most heated topics we get into as well is like, how do I deal with negative reviews and all that stuff? But what I tell them is, look, you may not like being equated to a tablet, because if I'm on Amazon and I'm going to buy a tablet, I'm going to look at the reviews. If I'm looking for a chiropractor, I'm looking at reviews. If I'm looking for a dentist, I'm looking for an oral surgeon. If I'm looking for anybody, an attorney, what am I doing? I'm looking at reviews. I mean, yes, you go to the website, you might check out their Facebook and get a feel for them. But when it comes time to decision making, it's reviews. There's a slide I show that's one of the most important slides I show in my presentations, and I call it the marketing funnel. And at the top of the funnel, we've got awareness, right? You've got newspaper, TV, this type of stuff. Conversion rate's typically 1 to 3%, and that's being generous, right, of the leads that you generate, the conversion rate. Then you get into the website and social media. Websites, they typically convert between 7 and 15% of the traffic typically gets converted to leads. Lead meaning phone call, chat, appointment request, something like that. However, when you get into review sites, between Yelp and Healthgrades and Facebook and Google, those are the big 4 in dentistry. Those are the 4 we say are critical. Every dentist has to pay attention to those 4. They typically convert between 50 to 75% of the leads that people hit those sites. So with WEO, what was cool is for a while, we were a Yelp partner agency. For 6 years, we've been a Google partner agency. And for the last 2 years, we've been a Healthgrades partner agency. As a result of that, I get a lot of inside information from those companies about the conversion rate on those platforms. And I can tell you that they're pretty much typically between 65 and 75%. What that means is when people hit a Healthgrades page or your Yelp page or your Google page, they look at the reviews, about 2/3 of the time, they're going to make a decision. They're either calling you or they're calling somebody else later that day, but that day they're going to make a decision 2/3 of the time. So in terms of this marketing funnel, it's insane not to pay attention to your reviews, because everybody says, oh, I want to rank on page 1 of Google. Yeah, absolutely. Of course, you should want to rank on page 1 of Google, but realize a lot of those people that are coming to you from Google are going to check out your reviews. And if you don't have solid reviews dialed in, you are really missing the boat here. So when we design these marketing programs, you got to have the website, yes, social media, yes, but of course, reviews is a major, major component of that. So I couldn't agree with you more, Howard. It's one of the most important things that they got to pay attention to.
When I go to Dental Town, there's 250,000 dentists. They posted coming up on 6 million times. I just put in WEO media, and there's several threads discussing your company. And
usually they're good.
Yeah, they are good, and they love it when the owner talks to them. I mean, the reason Jobs was a genius, he didn't invent any of that stuff. He tried to promote himself like he was Tesla, but he wasn't. He was a genius marketer. And people were buying into Steve Jobs. It's the same thing with Microsoft. They knew it's Bill Gates. And the reason they don't like so many government agencies, they don't know who's the CEO of the post office or the IRS or anything like that. So you guys should get on there, or because you're the founder, right? The founder and CEO of WEO. Yeah, I tell you, the best thing for your brand with dentists is they use your avatar as your face and get on there. And if you're shy and humble, just say, Howard told me to do it, if you're fair self-promotion. But so as a DSO project, you work a lot with WEO media.
Yeah. Well, I'm an owner. Yeah, I'm an owner of both companies, right?
Sorry, go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, I'm an owner of both companies. So I co-founded WEO Media, and then I'm a partner with Jeromy in the DSO project. So with the DSO project, we certainly would recommend people to use WEO if they're looking for a marketing solution, but they don't have to use WEO Media to use DSO project. We would recommend them. Obviously, I'm biased there, but it's not a requirement. They're separate companies.
And Howard, I'm biased a little bit as well. Even though there are other great companies out there, I built my DSO working with Ian at WEO Media as well. So, I mean, I can't. He's humble, but they've won best of class in dentistry the last 3 years for dental marketing at WEO. So it's a wonderful company, and we didn't necessarily come on here to talk about that, but
right.
We're talking about it. I can definitely put forth my.
Well, I want to talk about stuff the dentists can learn while they're commuting to work, and then go back and get her done. And I know they have no interest in building a website, recording their phone calls. I know they're not. You should have seen them at the Digital Dental Conference. When they showed any machine that costs over $100,000, they would just start drooling all over themselves. When the guy said, yeah, our lab charges $400 an arch to pour up that model, all digital, they were still drooling. I mean, I had like a knot in my stomach and was ready to throw up. And they just, in fact, he should have said it costs $4,000 an arch to pour it up, and then he probably would have had everybody buy the machine. I just want these guys to get the business side done so they can do more of what they went to school 8 years for. This brand's an hour. We're at 1:15. Everyone's telling me to shut up and get off. Final advice. 25, podcasters. All my dentist friends that are over 55, I mean, they couldn't find a podcast on their iPhone if I put a gun to their head. A quarter of our listeners are still in dental school. What advice do you have them? Spend a couple minutes, give parting words. What advice do you have to these kids coming out? They're scared. They're coming out 350, 400,000 in debt. Talk to those guys.
Ian, I'll let you go first, and I'll wrap up if you don't mind. Go ahead.
Sure, I can go real quick. I think when they are coming out of school, some of the things that they need to consider are, how are they going to pay back that debt? How are they going to get experience? This is why a lot of people end up going into DSOs, at least for a while, to get that initial training. But I think that they would be wise to get advice from people further down the road than themselves. And I would defer to Jeromy on this one, because you guys are dentists, and so I think that would be some pretty wise advice, so to seek counsel of people who are more experienced.
Absolutely. Yeah. Make sure you find a mentor, find somebody, another dentist in town, or a friend that you can call up when you have issues and you're not all alone. That's one of the things with dentistry that can be tough, is that especially if you're in a solo practice, you're really siloed. You're on your own, and
Yeah.
dental societies and conferences can only do so much. And I know that Howard Dental Town has been a huge, collaborative tool for dentists and made that world smaller. And it's been, that's why it's grown and blown up the way that it is. And a great foresighted vision from you to be able to see that and bring that together, because so many dentists, it can be quite lonely. And I was lucky enough that from day one, I was in at least a small group, so I always had some of those mentors built in, but not everybody has that. So I think that's, absolutely number one. As far as financially coming out of school with so much debt, be wise. Don't go out, you're first, you graduate from dental school and you're just starting your job. Don't go buy a $100,000 car. Don't go, buy a $1 million house. Like you're a doctor now, but you're a doctor because you're still dangerous, but you're not as dangerous. And so you still have a lot to learn. You have loans to pay off. Don't put yourself in a hole right from the beginning. You're already in a hole. And I think coming out of school, I would want to be aware of what's happening. I'm going to make one recommendation. I know we're short on time here. If dentists haven't read it, read Marko Vujicic. He's the chief economist at ADA. Another article I would read is June 2014, Harvard Business Review. It's called "Engaging Doctors in the Healthcare Revolution." And if you have one associate or you have other docs that you're leading, it's a must read. You have to read it. And it talks about medicine, but you can apply those same principles to dentistry. And then the other thing I see a lot of, people just aren't organized. Have a task list, have a calendar, prioritize it. Make sure that you're getting the things that are most important done on a daily basis. And then last point is only surround yourself with the best. Whether that's why Ian's here. He's the best marketer, dental marketer I know. Great experience, broad range. I love it. Also companies, also people you have around you and your team. So,
and I just want to say one thing, and all three of us have our MBA. That was a totally vector point for me. It was when I bought my first laptop, and what I did is through the 2-year MBA, I took my laptop with the end in mind. What I did, I took all notes that applied to dentistry. I made all the notes as perfect, and it turned out 30 hours long. It's called the 30-Day Dental MBA. It's free on YouTube. I also right now you're on listen to iTunes Dentistry Uncensored. There's also the 30-Day Dental MBA on iTunes, and that took me 2 years. I condensed it all for you, and I think if you listen to that, you either won't need to get your MBA or it'll motivate you to go get your MBA. But gentlemen, I'm out of time. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I hope you guys have a rocking hot day.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot. You too, Howard. Thanks.
All right,
Thanks, Mark.